You are listening to A Scary State, and this week we're covering Oregon. So, Kenzie.
Yes, Lauren.
Let's get scary.
Sounds good. So when I was doing my research for this state, the lady that I sent you that Snapchat of, where she sounded very intoxicated, which I think was maybe the point.
Oh.
But it was annoying.
Yeah.
Apparently, people from Oregon, or Oregon, I don't know, I guess people say it wrong.
It's like Oregon. There's no way to know.
Yeah.
People are going to get mad regardless of how it's said.
True.
Yeah. So I, at Orange Theory, we did a mile benchmark yesterday, and I got a PR by 7 seconds.
Hell yeah.
Thank you. I was very proud, and now I'm very sore.
Remember the fox that I saw pooping?
Yeah.
I think it has a death wish because it ran in front of my car this morning.
Same fox?
I have no idea.
We'll assume it's the same fox.
We can assume. There's always those animals, like moose. You don't realize how big they are.
Oh my God, they're huge.
This fox was massive. It's a huge fox.
Foxes are cute.
Yeah, but this thing was like huge. It had its like mouth open and like.
Ew. I saw a raccoon today as I was leaving work.
Those are cute too.
It was cute. Like the car in front of me, like all of a sudden stopped. I was like, "What are you doing?" And then I saw the raccoon. I was like, "Oh, it's so cute."
I saw like a tweet somewhere, and they had said something about how we really had missed the mark to not domesticate bears.
Can you imagine?
Oh, it would have been great.
But oh my God, just imagine all the bear hugs and like going to bed just in
bear
a bear's
hugs
arms.
could literally happen.
That would be amazing.
Instead of it being a figure of speech.
Right. Oh, that would be so cute.
It would be.
And then you wouldn't have to take care of them during the winter. They would hibernate.
Yep.
So they're only like a 3 out of 4 month pet.
Yeah. Sure.
But you'd have to feed it a lot of food. So we'd probably go broke.
Yeah.
But oh. I was once, where I went to college, there were like a ton of mountains. We lived in the valley. And so I was going up to Massanutten to like do this thing. And I was driving through and a baby bear, like a little cub, ran in front of my car. And I was like, ooh, that means the mom is somewhere in these scary woods.
Mm-hmm.
And so I drove away because I got real scared.
That's probably a smart choice.
But I admired the little baby as it ran across the road.
As one should.
Oh, it was so cute.
Shall we get into Oregon?
I think we should.
Okay. So Lauren found an article titled 14 Reasons Why Oregon Sucks and You Probably Shouldn't Move Here.
So here I was with this article, thinking that it was going to be one of those where they list the things like, if you hate the mountains, you wouldn't want to move here. Or if you hate beautiful views.
Thought it was going to be a satire.
Yeah, like I thought it was going to be one of those things.
But it was
literal.
No.
It really seemed like the author was not very happy to live in Oregon.
Okay, so reason number 3, Oregon is about as fun as watching paint dry. Reason 5, if you love your life, you might as well forget about moving to Oregon because you're probably going to die. Oh my God.
I know. This person like really didn't like Oregon. And like I use Only in Your State a lot as like a website to do a lot of stuff.
Oh girl, that is how I start my searches.
I love that website. So he was like, no, he wasn't for this one, but there will be people who like do a state. Like you'll see the same person writing articles for the same state.
Right.
So this guy, whatever website he was on, he was writing articles all for Oregon.
Okay.
And because I thought it was Only in Your State, but it wasn't. It was this other thing.
Yeah.
But he had this one where he hated it. And then he had another article where he was like talking about all these great things. I was like, sir, please make up your mind about the state you live in.
I feel like that's kind of how we feel about Virginia.
Okay, yeah.
Like,
yeah, very valid point.
Like, we shit on it. We have some great things about this place. Mm-hmm. And, like, if anyone else were to talk shit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Except someone got mad at us for talking shit about other states.
Suck it up.
Yeah.
Every state has some bullshit.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, it's not like we're saying, like, Virginia's the best state ever. We also talk shit about our own state.
Absolutely.
So it's like all states are equal.
Exactly. Equal opportunity.
Yeah.
No state is left shit on.
Made fun of, yes.
Oh, I had a thought. Because you said something. No, don't. Oh, my best friend's best friend.
Okay.
Lives in Oregon. She's from there.
Wow, what a connection you have.
I found this really great tweet, and it was like, best friend-in-law, noun. The best friend of your best friend that you constantly hear about and greatly admire from afar or something like that.
Oh, cute.
So I sent it to her. I was like, I'm so glad you're my best friend-in-law.
That's cute.
Hey, Alyssa, have you listened to this? I'm going to tell her to listen to it just so she hears me. So, Oregon has over 152 breweries. Portland, in particular, has more microbreweries than any other city in the world. What's the difference?
I don't know.
Okay. And also has over 750 vineyards.
Wow.
Love it. Oregon has a large llama population. I love llamas. 1/4 of the country's llamas are in Oregon. I didn't even know that this country had llamas. So,
We have a friend, he either wants to start an alpaca or a llama farm. Like, that's what his dream is to run a llama or alpaca farm.
I have a really great koozie that says, no drama llama.
Cute.
Thank you. Portland plays host to one of the largest naked bike rides in the world. That doesn't seem comfortable.
No, it does not.
Or pleasant to watch.
That would be so gross.
A little bit. The world's oldest shoes are found in a cave in Oregon in 1938. It was determined that they were over 10,000 years old. Interesting.
Wild.
Talk about a cave from 1938. Weird. The now defunct, okay, cool, North American Wildlife Research Team built a Bigfoot trap in the Siskiyou
Sounds good.
National Forest back in 1974. For 6 years, they kept it baited with animal carcasses. But I guess nothing came from it, though Oregon is the number 6 state for the most Bigfoot sightings, with Washington as number 1.
Yeah.
Wikipedia's first website was developed in Portland. That's cool. A weird little law: if your parents get divorced, regardless of your age, you can pick which parent you want to live with. Can't you do that?
I feel like the law comes into it in a lot of other states, and also age. Like, if you're 4 and, like, I don't know.
I'm trying to remember what the age was. It's either 10 or...
I think you get custody granted to you, like, in a divorce. But in Oregon, you get to choose, like, the kid gets to choose, which I feel is very traumatizing.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, depending on the parents.
Yes, very true.
Because there are some situations where, like, the kid should get to choose.
Yeah.
I was an infant, so I couldn't
Yeah.
pick.
Just picture an infant just throwing their hands somewhere and being like, all right, that's the parent.
The Oregon flag is the only state flag that has a different design on the front and the back of the flag. Interesting.
Yeah.
Those in Oregon aren't allowed to pump their own gas.
What's the other state that won't allow it?
New Jersey.
Yeah.
You can't ask me these questions because now I can't remember where I am.
Gas.
Thank you. We all know the Simpsons are from Springfield, though the actual state is not known, but it is believed that Springfield in Oregon was the inspiration. I thought it... Maybe... I can't remember. There was a Simpson movie they said what the state is. I just don't remember.
It was inspired by the one in Oregon.
Got it.
Yeah. Doesn't necessarily mean that's where they live, but that was the inspiration.
Got it. Oregon is home to more ghost towns than any other state. They have about 80, and other sources have said that they have over 200. One of those is Idiotville. That's a clever name. When you drive to Deep Creek, you have to pass through Accident Town, the town of Accident.
There's some weird town names in the world.
Yeah. Crater Lake is deeper than the Empire State Building is tall, meaning that you could...
I didn't know if people would understand the way that I worded that sentence, because you always make fun of my wording.
In case you don't know what that means... What we're trying to say is that if you were to put the entire Empire State Building into this lake, you would not be able to see the top of it because it is not tall enough.
Right, yeah.
And the lake is deeper than that.
Yeah. It was just really advanced language that I used. And, I had to make sure you understood. Had to make sure others understood. Oh my gosh, real quick. We have a koozie in here. Look, it says Oregon Inlet. Huh, how cool. I didn't know where to put it, so it's been there for a while, and how fitting.
If you don't follow us on TikTok yet, then what are you doing? Number one. Number two, you could see the koozie we're talking about.
Yeah.
The Empire State Building. Wow, you really made sure people understood.
I also wanted to give the whole depth of the ocean.
Oh, my goodness.
Or the lake.
Right. So the Empire State Building is 1,454 feet tall, which is 443 meters. And Crater Lake is 1,946 feet tall, or 593 meters. So as you can see, the lake is deeper than the building is tall.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. The Oregon Trail is one of the longest ancient land routes at 2,200 miles long.
Did you ever play that game?
The Oregon Trail?
Yeah.
Of course.
I never played it.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh.
I hear people talk about it all the time, and I'm like, I don't have these fun memories.
I also played, like, it's like a version of Who Wants to Be a Millionaire for like SOL review.
Oh.
And it was on this website that when I started teaching and we had to do like science SOL review and they like, my kids logged onto it. I'm like, this website seems awfully familiar. And so they start playing the games and I'm like, oh my God.
What was it?
It's called solpass.com or .org or whatever it is.
I don't remember that at all.
I don't remember the name of the site from when we were kids.
Yeah.
I just remember the games.
Oh, cool.
Sometimes I'll see like passages or like, especially made from the county. And I'm like, I had that passage when I was a kid.
Nothing has changed in the many, many years.
Hell's Canyon is the deepest river gorge in the U.S., meaning it is actually deeper than the Grand Canyon. Should we go over that?
Shut up.
So what that means is if we were to put the Grand Canyon into Hell's Canyon, okay, that you wouldn't be able to see the top of the Grand Canyon.
I'm going to punch you. I'll smack you across this table.
Wouldn't want my sarcasm to offend you, though. The Tillamook Mook.
I say Tillamook because I know it will rhyme with rock.
But mook is spelled like book.
Well, then in that instance, it would be Tillamook.
Yeah.
Tillamook.
Tillamook Rock Lighthouse.
Okay.
Is the final resting place of around 400,000.
Nope.
I literally.
You're a teacher?
No, my numbers and oh my God, I hate it. And I'm like, it's with the dyslexia thing too. I'm looking at it. I see that the order is 4, 6, 7. But then when my brain goes, or my brain and the mouth, my brain tries to go tell my mouth to speak, it comes up with whatever it wants. So 467,000 cremated people. This is more than the entire population of Iceland.
Yeah, so they have all of these like urns in this lighthouse.
I know where I want to be buried.
At the lighthouse?
Yeah.
Okay. I'll rest your ashes there that go into a box because ashes don't just go into the ground or anything.
Shut up. Asshole. What this means is if you were to take the entire...
Oh my God.
Oh, this is great. It's like we have an inside joke now. So this is a really cute one. There is a yellow Labrador named Norman. Love that name. Well, when he heard 15-year-old Lisa Nibley drowning in Naganicum River, he jumped in to save her. Norman's owner was unable to save the girl, so she told Lisa to yell for Norman to come save her, and he would. And he did. And the most amazing part is that Norman is blind. Dogs are too pure for this world. Facts. Facts. Nike headquarters is located in Beaverton. Clint Eastwood lived in Springfield, Oregon for a time. Do you think that the Simpsons, anyone from there, would have inspired by Clint Eastwood since he was in Springfield?
Maybe.
Okay. The lead guitarist of Kiss, Tommy Thayer, was born in Portland. And that is Oregon.
Mm-hmm.
So, Lauren.
Yes, Kenzie.
What you talking about today?
Okay. So I know we're doing Oregon today. Just keep that in mind that I'm aware of this fact.
Starting in a different state, huh?
No. But.
Does it end in Oregon?
Yeah. The beginning, middle, and end is in Oregon. But there are sporadic little bloops that are not in Oregon.
Okay.
And I want to give a blanket trigger warning. So this case will have mentions of rape, sexual assault, and sexual assault on minors. And sadly, there is a lot of those mentions throughout.
Oh.
Okay, so let's get right into it.
Let's do it.
So Randall Brent Woodfield was born on December 26, 1950 to a middle-class family in Salem, Oregon. He was the third child with 2 older sisters. His mother was a homemaker and his father was an executive at Pacific Northwest Bell, a company that provided telecommunication systems across Oregon, Washington, and northern Idaho. By all accounts, they were a good family with no signs of issues. They were even, quote, well-known and respected within their community.
They always are.
Always are. At some point, the family moved to the small seaside town of Otter Rock.
As there are otters there.
It is a seaside town. But don't move to Otter Rock because this guy lived there.
Mental note to Google
visit
Otter Rock.
So all seemed good and perfect, except that during adolescence around high school and as young as 11, Woodfield began to display some antisocial sexual behavior,
Oh, no.
mainly indecent exposure.
Hold on. I know this can sound so random. There's a season 3 of Unexplained on Hulu.
Oh,
Yes.
fun.
And the only reason I thought of it was because the next episode I have to watch, I'm rewatching the second season, is serial killers.
Oh.
So that's why it made me think of it.
Oh, perfect.
Yes.
So growing up, Woodfield attended Newport High School in Oregon and was pretty popular among his peers. He played basketball and ran track, but most importantly, he was the high school football star.
Wow.
So he's your typical good-looking jock, the all-American boy. And like all high school football players, he received some special treatment. While in high school, his antisocial behaviors didn't falter, and he ended up being arrested for indecent exposure after exposing himself to a group of teenage girls on the Yaquina Bay Bridge. But in order to remain on the team, his coaches actually hushed up the whole crime, sweeping it under the rug.
Wow.
To allow him to continue playing and not be kicked off of the team and to not be ousted by his fellow teammates. His parents did take some good steps forward, though. They forced him to begin attending therapy over this incident.
Okay.
So, and due to him being a minor during his previous arrest, his record was expunged when he turned 18. When he graduated high school in 1969, he went to Treasure Valley Community College.
To the moon in 1969.
Do you know how often that song just pops into my head when I'm walking because of you?
Every
Like,
time
I'll be at
someone says
work,
1969.
and I'll be like, we went to the moon. And it's so annoying.
Imagine how I feel when the last time I watched that episode of Even Stevens. It's been in my brain since. So,
Lives rent free, huh?
oh my God. It's built a condominium.
Just starting a whole empire.
Exactly.
So after he graduated, he went to Treasure Valley Community College in Ontario, Oregon. There are a lot of states that have the same names all over.
My thing is also in Ontario, Oregon.
Oh my goodness.
It's like we're friends.
Oh my God, same wavelength. Then in 1970, he transferred to Portland State University in Portland and played... I threw in a lot of places in Oregon or threw it after those cities so that you couldn't be like, is it in Oregon? And I could be like, yes, it is. So...
What?
You'll see.
Okay.
So he played as the wide receiver for the Portland State Vikings. He was a pretty active and typical college dude. He was interested in physical education, so he was taking classes which focused on that. He was active in the Campus Crusade for Christ, or CRU.
Oh, I've heard of that.
Yeah, we had them at our college. So this is a Christian student group, and a big appeal of it is that many student athletes are a part of it. So he joined after becoming a born-again Christian when entering college. He also played on the basketball team for a small Bible study group called God Squad.
Oh my God.
Yep.
That's so fucking lame. What a loser.
We don't like him, so make as much fun of him as you want to.
Oh, great.
So College Woodfield was described as nice, quiet, and polite, but kind of a loner who didn't have many friends. Like I said, he was a football player, and his teammates even felt the same way, that there was just something off about him.
That's interesting that he's like involved in all these.
Right, like he's like that guy, you know.
Yeah.
One of his teammates recalled that Woodfield was known to make off-the-wall statements, though he didn't struggle to find female companionship, which I think is weird. He has like
Yeah.
all these weird, like he's antisocial, he says all these bad statements, he like, it doesn't get along well with the guys, but all of the people he talked to are like, he never had a problem finding a girl.
You gotta wonder if there is like a quiet demeanor kind of thing is gonna appeal more to women than it would men.
Maybe. Well, he was around 6 foot tall, had moppy brown. Yeah, I didn't know what it was supposed to be. Okay. He was around 6 feet tall, had moppy brown curly hair and dark eyes. SportsIllustrated.com.
Wow, he sounds like just my type.
Right. Right. So SportsIllustrated.com described him as saying, quote, he was 6 feet with negligible body fat, which means like none,
Oh.
well-defined muscles, and a sly smile framed by what today might be called a porn stash.
Oh my God.
And a funny note, he once sent a picture of himself, shirtless and oiled up, to Playboy or whatever the male equivalent is. He was featured in an issue of the magazine.
So that's why he got all the girls, because he was attractive.
Oh, yeah,
You can be like, they always say that, like you could have two guys that exhibit the same creepy behavior, but the one that's attractive is going to get away with it.
Right.
Yeah.
But by all accounts, academically and athletically, Woodfield was thriving in school. though there was still that behavior that was lingering under the surface. In the 70s, while in college, he was arrested 3 more times for a multitude of different petty crimes to include vandalism and, again, public indecency. In 1970, he vandalized his ex-girlfriend's apartment, but without enough evidence, he was found not guilty during the trial. Then, in 1972, he was arrested in Vancouver, Washington for public indecency. He received suspended time, which means that if you have time suspended, if you're bad, you get that time added on.
Oh.
But in 1973, he was arrested for the same thing, the indecent exposure, in Multnomah County, Oregon, but only received more suspended time. So maybe because they were in different counties or different states altogether, because one happened in Washington, one in Oregon.
Yeah.
But I guess he was pretty decent at football because, while being just 3 semesters shy of graduating in 1974, he was drafted to play for the Green Bay Packers.
Oh, shit.
As a wide receiver in the 17th round. He was picked 428.
Wow.
So this actually shocked a lot of his old teammates. They recall that he was pretty particular with his looks, making sure he looked good, that his muscles looked good, and that his hair was perfect. And so him being drafted was wild to them, as they said that Woodfield would do whatever possible to avoid being tackled to, like, keep up his good looks.
Oh, my God.
Which, like, yes, you don't want to get tackled. Obviously, I understand that concept of football.
Most people would do it for 1, the game, or 2, safety.
Yeah.
Not for, like, looks.
Yes. So he would go out of his way to not get tackled, like not following through with the plays they were supposed to be doing, like anything to avoid it. And he was usually described as being good at football, but nowhere near professional good.
Yeah.
So he moved on over to Wisconsin. He wasn't here long, so don't worry. Where he signed a contract with the Packers in February of 1974. But his teammates might have been right about him only being good because during their training camp, he was unable to make the team's final roster. He then dropped down to semi-pro and played with the Manitowoc Chiefs. While playing, he was working for Oshkosh Truck.
What a fun name.
I know. But in June of 1973, he was arrested again in Portland for indecent exposure crimes.
Bro, keep your pants on.
This is just the beginning. So I guess the Chiefs were sort of the team under the Packers is how I took it. So semi-pro, you play for the Chiefs, you get really good, and then you could go up to the Packers.
They do the same thing for baseball.
Yes, exactly. That's why I figured this. I could be wrong, but that's how I read it. Yeah. And so he kind of regressed where he went from Packers to the Chiefs.
Sure. Yeah.
But after this additional arrest, the Chiefs and Packers decided that he just didn't really fit well here.
No.
There was too much bad about him, so they suspended his ability to play with either team. Then in 1974, after a series of even more incidents, some report claiming over a dozen, he was formally cut from the NFL altogether.
God.
After being cut and having no ties to Wisconsin, Woodfield moved back to Portland. This big rejection had a negative impact on him, as this was about the time when his crime started to ramp up.
Uh-oh.
So it was early 1975, and all over Portland, reports started to come to law enforcement of women saying that they had been accosted by a knife-wielding man who would force them to perform oral sex, then steal whatever the woman had with them, usually their handbags. Thankfully, law enforcement took these reports very seriously and responded. They had one of their female officers act as a decoy to see if they could catch Woodfield. The officer was to walk around, I think it was a park, by herself with a handbag that contained money. Well, on March 3rd, 1975, Woodfield fell right into that trap when he accosted the officer and stole her bag. He was immediately arrested.
Good.
He was in possession of the marked money that they had put in the officer's bag, so they were able to hit it home that he was guilty. During the interrogation for this arrest, he fully confessed to the crimes. But naturally, he had an excuse. He was addicted to steroids. And
What?
and those caused him to have poor sexual impulse control.
Oh.
So mainly saying it wasn't him, it was the steroids. And then literally in my notes, I put gag. So he pled guilty to reduced charges of second-degree robbery in April of that year, where he was then sentenced to 10 years in prison. During his stint in prison, Woodfield had been corresponding with a former classmate of his, Sherry Lynn Ayers. Apparently, he had reached out to her and she replied back. Ayers was born on December 13th, 1950 in Oregon. She was a graduate of the University of Oregon and was working as an x-ray technician. The two had known each other since second grade, having attended school together in Newport while growing up.
Wow.
But after only serving 4 years, he was paroled in July of 1979. I read somewhere that he got out of prison just in time to attend his 10-year high school reunion, where he and Ayers connected even more. Not in like a sexual, romantic way, but just like, you know, we spoke in like while you were in prison, we're being friendly at this reunion kind of thing.
Right.
So a little over a year later, on October 9th of 1980, a woman was found raped and murdered in her apartment in downtown Portland. She had been bludgeoned and repeatedly stabbed in the neck. The coroner concluded that she had died from blunt force trauma and knife wounds to her neck.
Oh my God.
Her body was found by her fiancé a few days later on October 11th. That woman was Sherry Lynn Ayers. Her family immediately went to law enforcement and told them that they needed to look into Woodfield. The two had been known to like know each other, and it was like not a secret fact that they had been corresponding recently. Woodfield was taken in and questioned, but when asked if he would give a polygraph, he refused. His behavior during the interview was described as, quote, evasive and deceptive. So another trigger warning for rape here. A rape kit was done on Ayers and semen was found. Woodfield's blood was taken, but his blood type did not match the semen found. So no charges were filed and he was free to go. So they were able, I know, it's like weird.
I guess they don't have DNA.
Right.
Do they?
So at this time, I read it, I listened to another podcast. They were able to determine blood type from semen.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, somehow. But so they had his blood and they had this semen, but back in the 80s, obviously DNA technology is not great.
Right.
So I guess they weren't, whatever their system was, they weren't able to make the match.
Yeah.
But I feel like it's gotten better. So nowadays, like, you can just compare the DNA down to like the smallest little percentage of it.
Yeah.
Ayers' family always held on to this feeling that Woodfield was involved, but at this point, there was nothing they could do. Then, just a month later, on Thanksgiving Day, November 27th, Woodfield would continue his awful behavior. He went to a home in North Portland with the intent to assault the occupant of that house. Some reports said he planned to rape the person who lived there. But this wasn't going to be a random attack, as Woodfield also knew the occupant. Her name was Darcy Renee Fix, and she was 22. Fix and Woodfield had met in college when Fix had dated one of Woodfield's close friends, so he knew her as the ex of that friend.
Right.
So Woodfield arrives at her residence and is surprised that someone else is home with Fix, a man named Douglas Keith Altig, 24. Somehow, Woodfield was able to bound both Fix and Altig, and while they were bound and completely helpless, he shot both execution style.
Oh my God.
After the crime, Fix's .32 caliber revolver was found to be missing from the home. Again, based on his acquaintance with Fix and the fact that he had been questioned once for a violent murder,
Sure.
he was questioned again, but again, there was no concrete evidence to convict him or even hold him. These murders set Woodfield off on a spree, and over the next month, he began a series of robberies throughout the Northwest. On December 9th, 1980, by gunpoint, he held up a gas station in Vancouver, Washington, while wearing a fake beard. 4 nights later, on December 13th...
Just grow a beard.
Well, he wanted to change his appearance.
Oh, I guess quickly.
Yeah.
Okay. I mean...
Just grow a beard, my God. 4 nights later, on December 13th, he raided an ice cream parlor in Eugene. The next night, he robbed a restaurant in Albany. During one of these... All in Oregon, by the way.
I figured.
During one of these robberies, it was reported that the man responsible had been wearing either a Band-Aid or athletic tape across the bridge of his nose. So think either one of those breathe right strips or one like, football player might wear across their nose.
Yeah.
Then again, in quick succession, on December 21st, while wearing that fake beard again, he entered a restaurant in Seattle. He trapped a waitress in the bathroom and at gunpoint forced her to perform a sexual act on him.
Oh my God.
By this time, the person responsible for all of these crimes, who we didn't know was Woodfield at the time, had been dubbed the I-5 Bandit, as most of his crimes had occurred along the I-5 corridor in the Northwest. His crimes continued on. On January 8th, Woodfield returned back to the gas station in Vancouver that he had held up at gunpoint back in December, but this time he emptied the cash register, then forced the female attendant to expose her breasts.
Oh my God.
He's literally awful.
Disgusting.
3 days later, on January 11th, in Eugene, he robbed a market. On January 12th, in Sutherland, Oregon, he shot and wounded Susie Bennett, 20, a grocery store clerk. Then on January 14th, still wearing that fake beard, he broke into a home where 2 sisters lived. They were 8 and 10. Again, trigger warning here. He forced the 2 girls to undress and sexually assaulted them.
Oh my God.
Forcing the older girl to perform an act on him. I know, he's really awful. On the 18th, he made his way to Salem, where he entered the Trans-American Office Building in Kaiser, Oregon. It was around 9 p.m., and Sherry Hull was nearing the end of her work night. She was the building's cleaner and was just about done when a man approached her holding a gun. He grabbed Hull by the arm and began leading her down a hall where they ran into another one of Hull's coworkers, Beth Wilmot. One source I read said that the coworker's name was Lisa Garcia, but every other source I read said Beth, so we're going to go with Beth.
Okay.
He sexually assaulted Hull and Wilmot before shooting both of them twice, execution style, in the back of the head.
Oh my God.
Hull was killed immediately, but while badly injured, Wilmot was not. She continued to lie there on the floor playing dead until the murderer walked away. Once Woodfield left, she was able to make her way to a phone and called the police. On the 26th and 29th, he moved around Oregon and committed robberies in Eugene, Medford, and Grants Pass. In Medford and Grants Pass, he assaulted 2 more women. On February 3rd, 1981, Woodfield called his sister, who lived in Shasta County, California, and asked if she wanted to get lunch with him. She said no. Her husband didn't want him around.
Oh.
But Woodfield couldn't handle rejection at all. He was furious, and because he was in the Shasta area, he broke into a random home in Mountain Gate, California. That ended up being the home of Donna Eckert, 37, and her 14-year-old daughter. The next day, they were both found in Donna's bed together, dead.
Oh my God.
Both had been shot several times in the head. Forensics tests revealed that the daughter had been sexually assaulted before she had been killed.
Ugh.
Later that day in Redding, California, a store was held up and the female store clerk was kidnapped and raped. The next day in Eureka, California, a similar crime was committed with a female store clerk being kidnapped and raped. And just that night, he robbed a hotel in Ashland, Oregon. So he's like, bam, 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 bam.
He's like not letting up.
And I have too much empathy because this next part made me sad. And I know it shouldn't make me sad because he's an awful person. But I feel bad easily. And when people like feel sad, I feel sad. And so it's February. And Woodfield had planned a Valentine's Day party in downtown Portland at a Marriott hotel. He invited all of his friends and acquaintances from college, but no one showed up. And I know I shouldn't feel bad, but I just like feel bad because I picture him like being excited for this party and then no one shows up. And I shouldn't feel bad.
If we imagine him in just that moment.
Right.
Sure.
And then I remember all the awful things he did and I'm like, you're an awful person, so it's a good thing no one showed up. But it also probably triggered a bunch of shit because he probably got pissed. Well, this part shows he's a monster again because no one showed up. He felt rejected. Can we start to see a pattern here? He doesn't deal well with rejection.
People wonder why women try to be nice when they are saying no to a man.
Oh, trust me, I have that part written in my notes somewhere where I say I'll find it at some point where I'm like, and you wonder why people tell you to say no, and women are like, you can't say no.
Nope.
So he was mad, so he decides to drive to Beaverton, Oregon. Don't know why he chose that. He just goes there. So he had met a girl at a bar in Portland, the Faucet, when Woodfield was working out as a bouncer. Woodfield used to let underage women into the bar, so he ended up meeting many and talking to them. One of these women was 18-year-old Julie Ritz. On February 15th, so around 2 a.m., the night after the party didn't happen, Woodfield arrived at Ritz's house. She must have invited him in because later investigators noticed that Ritz had had a glass of wine with her attacker and coffee had been preparing on the kitchen counter. So water had been in a kettle that had been turned on, but it had been on so long that all of the water had boiled away.
Oh my God.
So we know investigators came because 2 hours after arriving around 4 a.m., Woodfield shot Ritz in the head, killing her. Her mother was the first one to find her the next morning.
Ugh.
February 18th and 21st, he struck again in Eugene, I believe probably robbing a place. And on February 25th, he sexually assaulted another individual in Corvallis, Oregon. So by this point, the public and law enforcement have no idea who the I-5 bandit is. They had descriptions: the tall man, moppy brown hair, dark eyes, usually wearing a Band-Aid or football tape across his nose. But they also had their suspicions. A detective in Marion County, Oregon, had been working on this case and had a focus on Woodfield. He had been questioned twice before for other crimes. He had his criminal record. He was just a really good suspect.
Sure.
So these detectives had been able to compile the calls that Woodfield had made from payphones. Payphones near the murder sites.
Oh.
All around the times that the murders had taken place. They were able to figure out that they figured all this out based on calling cards. So we millennials and younger people wouldn't have known what these were, so I had to look it up. But they're pretty much cards that you would use for telephone services. So he would self-register the card with your name.
Like a pay as you go.
Right, and then you pay the payphone with your card. Yeah. So they were able to track all of these calls. Beaverton Police Chief David Bishop said this of Woodfield's phone pattern, quote, "All of a sudden it became obvious. It was a map of I-5. Woodfield was addicted to the phone. He made thousands of calls. He had girlfriends everywhere." SportsIllustrated.com said, quote, "The irony was rich. The son of a Pacific Northwest Bell employee would be taken down in partly by phone records."
Oh, damn.
On March 5th, 1981, some of his victims were brought in for a lineup, and all of them positively ID'd Woodfield. One of these victims being Beth Wilmot, who had survived being shot in the head twice.
Oh my God. Good for her.
I know. So after being positively ID'd from the lineup, Woodfield was brought to the Salem Police Department in Oregon. During this time, the apartment he owned in Springfield, Oregon was searched after a warrant was secured. The search found a spent .32 caliber shell casing inside of a racquetball bag. This is the same type of gun that went missing from Darcy Fix's apartment after she had been murdered. They also found a roll of tape that matched the tape that had been found on the victims that he had bound, mainly Fix and Altig. 2 days later, on March 7th, another lineup was performed, and again, he was positively ID'd, this time as being the perpetrator of the Oregon robberies by several of the victims. He was immediately taken into custody. Then, on March 16th, various jurisdictions in Washington and Oregon initiated indictments against him for murder, rape, sodomy, attempted kidnapping, armed robbery, and illegal possession of firearms.
Jesus.
So Woodfield was tried for the first time in the summer of 1981 in Salem. Chris Van Dyke, son of Dick Van Dyke.
Really?
Yeah.
That's cool.
Isn't that weird? He was the Marin County District Attorney and presided over the case. Woodfield was tried for the murder of Hull and tried on charges of sodomy and attempted murder of Wilmot. Thankfully, though he had left her for dead, Wilmot had survived and was able to be the key, testify against him. So she was the key in his conviction.
Good for her.
After 3.5 hours of deliberation on June 26, 1981, Woodfield was convicted on all counts, the murder, sodomy, and attempted murder, and received life in prison plus 90 years.
Good.
Chris Van Dyke, who presided over the trial, said that Woodfield was, quote, the coldest, most detached defendant I've ever seen. Well, that was just the first trial, as in October of 1981, a second trial was to be held with a jury this time. Originally, it was going to take place in Willamette County, but due to the publicity the case had received, his counsel didn't believe he would get a fair trial if it took place there. But the judge denied this request.
Good.
And the trial took place in Benton County, Oregon anyways. This trial was for the sodomy and weapons charge tied to the attack of the waitress in the restaurant bathroom.
Okay.
Just a side note, his counsel was wild. At one point, they requested to be able to hypnotize a prosecution witness to see if that witness had been influenced by the media coverage surrounding the whole thing.
What?
The judge denied that request.
Yeah.
Right. The trial took place, the jury deliberated, and Woodfield was found guilty. This time, he received an additional 35 years added onto his already instated sentence. Unfortunately, Woodfield wasn't able to be linked to any of the other crimes he committed, and the state of Oregon wasn't able to afford all of the continued trials that would take place, so they were able to be satisfied with the sentencing he had received up to this point. You know, they were like,
Yeah.
he's going to be in jail.
Yeah.
So he had life in prison plus 125 years. His sentence does have a possibility of parole,
Shut up.
which I'm not sure when that possibility comes up, but everyone involved in the case is saying that they will make sure he will not get to that point, especially with how much information they have on him from the other cases that they just weren't able to convict him on at that time. So they have all these cases stockpiled
Yeah.
if they need them, and they have the evidence. So
Sure.
if he gets the chance for parole, he's not going to get it. So Woodfield is currently serving his sentence in Salem at the Oregon State Penitentiary, but all wasn't good for him in prison.
Good.
In October of 1983, he was injured by a fellow inmate during a prison disturbance. I hope he was injured way more than that.
Yep.
Also in 1983, the Oregon Parole Board voted unanimously to deny Woodford any parole opportunities or any further requests for a parole hearing. A book titled The I-5 Killer, written by Ann Rule, was published detailing his life and crime spree. In 1984, it became a best-selling book. Well, in April of that year, Fucker Woodfield filed a $12 million libel suit against Ann Rule.
He's literally been committed.
Right. But he's mad.
I mean,
she's like-
convicted.
right. But she's mad. Like, he's saying that, like, she's slandering my name. Because in her book, she said that Woodfield had shark eyes, small hands, herpes, and a low IQ.
I'm not going to lie. For 2.5 seconds, when you said fucker, I was like, she's going to blow past that. Like, that's not somebody's first name. Like, what? I was like, damn, she just like, that's the most casual. And then I clicked to you were talking about. That makes a lot more sense now. I'm like, we can't just leave that. We got to go back. Wait a minute.
That would have been like an important bolded part. Listen to this person's name.
Okay, sorry.
So in January of 1988, the Federal Court of Oregon dismissed a lawsuit stating that the statute of limitations on the lawsuit had expired.
Hell yeah.
I think they kind of just pushed it out and then waited because it took 4 years for them to make that decision.
Love that.
Also, while in jail, Woodfield's father came to visit him. It was a very short visit, and as his father was leaving, he said, "That's not the son I know." I know. By 1990, more victims of Woodfield's had been discovered, raising his presumed body count to 44. Right. And it's like, we haven't really heard of him, and he's like this prolific serial killer.
Yeah. Holy shit.
And thanks to the advancements of DNA testing, in 2001 and 2006, Woodfield was connected to 3 additional murders that took place in Oregon in 1980 and 1981. The DNA definitively connected him to the murders of Darcy Fix, Douglas Altag, and Julie Ritz. So we knew he did it, but this convicted him. Well, connected him because he hasn't been convicted for these ones.
Right.
He wasn't charged for these murders and won't be charged for these murders, but the DNA did connect him, and the families of the victims can finally get some answers or get some of their questions answered at least.
Sure.
I did read that Julie's mother is content to have the answers. She knew the answer, but is content to know that it has been verified. She isn't mad that they haven't tried Woodfield on her daughter's murder, though. She knows that if Woodfield ever somehow is granted a parole hearing, she knows her daughter's case will then be used to keep him in jail until he rots.
Oh, absolutely.
And somehow, while in prison, he got married 3 times.
Shut up.
And divorced twice. Like, who are these women?
That means he's still married.
Yeah.
That's disgusting.
Yeah, it's gross.
Like, go to therapy.
I did hear another podcast I listened to says there is like a legit condition of women who date criminals.
Oh, yeah.
Like Ted Bundy had a wife who married him, and like Charles Manson, like all those people had, or Marilyn Manson, if you will.
This is why I kept making fun of you with the depth and the height of shit, okay?
But so all of those, like, they get girlfriends in like prison.
Go to therapy.
Yeah.
Figure out your daddy issues, whatever the fuck it is, go to fucking therapy.
Yep.
Like, at this point in society, with how you can access like better help.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know how expensive it is, but it just a couple sessions. I'm sure
Anything not dating a serial killer is priceless.
Yeah.
So,
Jesus.
so there's this thing called the serial killer letters written by the Charles Press, which included some letters that Woodfield wrote while in prison. One of the included letters had originally been written to a journalist named Jennifer Furio. Some little excerpts from those letters are, quote, "You only care to know why murderers strike out in anger or rage. How should I know? What a question, Jenny. Care to write more personally? Share a photo? Talk once by phone? Your choice. Ciao." Also in his letters, he mentioned multiple times how he was innocent and how his court case was all messed up and evidence was thrown out and he actually didn't get a fair trial, like saying, quote, "Now the transcripts don't reflect the truth of what actually happened during my trial." He also said there was so much corruption, quote, "Corruption to the core, Miss Frio," and that the real murderer is a man named Larry Moore. Larry Moore was a murderer who was convicted in the 1987 cold case of Diana Lowry in Arizona. So he just...
What?
Yeah. So Woodfield just sounds like a prick. So...
And a dumbass.
Yeah.
Like...
I mean... Like what Ann Rule said, he had a low IQ.
Mm-hmm.
So now let's go over his MO and his victims, now that we have been able to put together a better picture of what crimes he did commit.
Sure.
So as you know, a majority of his victims were women. Most were white in their early 20s and came from a middle-class background. Again, not all of his victims, but a majority.
Mm-hmm.
A lot were either waitresses or gas station attendants who worked along that I-5 corridor. Gross little fact, he drove a car very similar to Ted Bundy. So Woodfield drove a 1974 Champagne Edition gold Volkswagen Beetle.
It wasn't Bundy's like yellow something?
It was like a pale Volkswagen Beetle.
Yeah.
It is believed that he had the forethought to try and conceal his identity by wearing the fake beard and then tape over his nose.
At this, okay, you know, I get in the beginning, you want to quickly rob a bunch of different places. But after a few months, can't you just fucking grow a beard?
Yeah, but you can take the beard off, though. So when people are looking for a bearded man, you don't have a beard.
Oh, yeah, that's a good
Yes.
point. Sorry, I didn't think about that.
It's not that he just wanted a beard.
No, I know. But I'm like, he's a man. He could just grow a beard and
Yeah.
then shave it off.
No, yeah, trying to completely change his identity. So he has the beard, he takes the beard off.
Yeah, yes.
Mhm.
Okay.
So this could be due to the fact that before he started to wear the stupid fake stuff, witnesses could accurately describe him.
Right.
His crimes were also clearly sexually motivated, and most times would come after he was rejected somehow. We noticed that he was rejected by the NFL. Then no one showed up to his party. His sister said no to lunch. It is believed that many other crimes happened because women refused his sexual advances. So this is where I put in my side note. Don't ever talk to me about how women should just say no.
We do say no. We say no nicely. We say no affirmingly, however you say that word. But either
You are
way,
never safe.
We're screwed.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you...
Uh-huh. Yep. A detective for Portland's cold case unit, Jim Lawrence, had some really interesting things to say about Woodfield. He said, quote, "If you're talking about somebody moving towards some form of rehabilitation, they had to at some point acknowledge they were responsible for their own behaviors. That is not Randy Woodfield." Also, he said, quote, "When he was interviewed, he'd tell detectives that he'd never rape a girl. He said he didn't have to. They wanted him." Yep. So at work the other day, I was...
Vile human being.
He's awful. So at work, we talk about this. I told the people at work about Mothman, and they were all so excited. Like, the guys in my row love Mothman. I don't know. So the other day, I mentioned this case to my coworkers because I was like, "Do y'all watch football?" "Yeah." "Do you know this guy?" "No." And they're like, "Lauren, he's from the 70s. I said, "I don't know how much guys know football."
Okay, which is also bullshit because the moment you say that you like a team, they're like, name 5 players.
Right. So we got into a discussion of what defines a spree killer, a mass killer, and a serial killer.
Oh.
So a spree killer is just like boom, 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 boom.
Yeah.
A mass killer, a lot of people at once. And a serial killer usually has a cooling off period. So they'll kill, cool off, kill, cool off.
Sure.
It's very clear that Woodfield didn't ever have that cool off period.
Oh, absolutely.
So Jim Lawrence said, quote, "He killed and then 5 weeks later killed again. Then it was 3 weeks, then 2 weeks. I believe that it would have soon been every few days. He was like the boogeyman." With Woodfield, the more crimes he committed, the sooner he would commit the next. So, as we saw, it was like
escalated.
January 11th, January 12th, January 13th, like
Yeah.
one after the other. Technically, overall, Woodfield never actually confessed to any of the murders. Many of the victims were able to be verified by some piece of evidence or DNA that definitely linked him to being the killer. But criminologists and detectives believe and estimate that Woodfield is responsible for anywhere from 25 to 44 unsolved homicides and at least 60 unsolved rapes. Some of those believed to be victims of Woodfield but have never been proven are Martha Morrison, who was 17, She disappeared in Eugene in September of 1974. Remains were found the next month near Vancouver, Washington. Sadly, her remains were only identified in 2015.
Oh my God.
Woodfield and Bundy had both been listed as potentially responsible for her death because Bundy was like a kind of key figure at this time, which is why maybe he kind of fell under the radar because Bundy was such a big thing during this time.
Yeah. Well, so I listened to this podcast. It's literally titled Serial Killers. And one of the more recent episodes I listened to talked about how during, I think it was the 70s, 60s, 70s, like that decade had the highest number of serial killers.
Yeah.
Like, I'm like, just
scary times.
Wild.
Yeah. So in regards to Morrison's death, the police reached out to the public in hopes of getting any additional information. Well, in August of 2017, her blood was found on a pistol that had been owned by Warren Leslie Forrest, a longtime suspect in her disappearance and death. But as of now, it is still technically unsolved. It hasn't gone anywhere. Marcia Wader, 19, and Kathy Allen, 19, were missing while hitchhiking to Spokane, Washington from Fairbanks, Alaska in the spring of 1980. Their bodies were found in May of 1981. Martin Lee Saunders, a suspected serial killer, was later connected to their murders, but at the time in 2018, their case had been unsolved and Woodfield had been a suspect. Sylvia Durante, 21, her body was found dumped on the side of the highway near Seattle in December of 1979. She had been strangled. This could have been the I-5 strangler, though, Roger Kibb. He was responsible for the rape and killing of 7+ victims all along I-5, mainly focused in California. At least 4 other women were found murdered near Huntington Beach, California, all killed in the typical way that Woodfield was known for. But we have our confirmed victims. Our definite confirmed victims, both murder and the other crimes, are, and I wanted to list their names because I like, listing the victims' names. Sherry Lynn Ayers, 29. Darcy Renee Fix, 22. Douglas Keith Altig, 24. The unnamed waitress, 25, who survived. Susie Bennett, 20, who survived. Sherry Lynn Hull, 20. Beth Wilmot, 20, who survived. Unnamed woman who was kidnapped and raped near Redding, California, 18, she survived. Donna Lee Eckerd, 37. Her daughter, Janelle Charlotte Jarvis, 14. Unnamed woman who was also kidnapped and raped in Rica, California, survived. Julie Ann Ritz, 18. So these cases all took place between October 9th, 1980 and February 15th, 1981.
Jesus Christ.
Right. Isn't that terrifying?
Holy crap.
That's just the span of, 5 months?
Yeah.
So while in prison in 2006, Woodfield made a MySpace profile.
Oh my God.
His profile said this about him. Quote, "I'm Randy. I'm 55. I spend the remainder of my days in prison because I have committed a murder along with many other crimes. I once tried out for the Green Bay Packers. The only reason I didn't make it is because the skills I had to offer they didn't need at the time." Isn't that kind of a terrifying little sentence there? So there you have it. The I-5 bandit, Randy Brent Woodfield.
Ugh.
I hate him.
Yes.
And this case, I just did not realize it was that intense. I picked him because he had been a Green Bay Packer. And I was like, oh, that's an interesting little tidbit.
Sure.
And then as I'm doing the research, I'm like, holy shit.
Yeah.
This guy is awful.
Well, and even when I was at the Death Museum too, and I know that I just have really started getting into this stuff. I've always been interested in it.
Mm-hmm.
I'm about to start Criminal Minds for the 5th time. It's my fall asleep show. I've seen it so many times.
Girls have so many of those. I put on a violent podcast.
Right now, it's
asleep.
the first 48.
Oh, I was talking to this girl at Orange Theory the other day, and she was like, "I'm about to start your podcast," and I was like, "Yeah, I listen to it all the time." She's like, "Right, you're washing dishes and you're hearing about the violent murder," and I was like, "I know."
But a lot of the people that were up on the wall, I'm telling you, it's like little baseball cards, and I was like, "Am I just out of touch, or is this just because there were so many?"
It could be. And then it's just all the focus on the big ones. You can name 5 big serial killers off the top of your head, but it's there's all these other ones who are equally as bad or worse, and you never hear about them.
I wonder,
which is good because it's not you shouldn't be glorifying them.
No,
but it's
absolutely.
You want their crimes and their victims to still be acknowledged.
I wonder too if it was a sign of the times, something that would make national news like that. I feel like you're going to hear about versus while it might be really big in that state.
Yeah.
I feel like it's harder to kind of spread news.
Right.
As it was, as it is today.
And because with Bundy, he traveled Washington,
right,
Oregon,
exactly.
Florida. He was on both coasts.
Yeah.
This guy was on the I-5.
Yeah.
And I think it was his dad or his uncle or someone's a realtor in that area, and said that actually he was trying to sell houses to people who didn't want to buy on the I-5 corridor because they were so scared of this murder.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, so he's like, I actually lost a ton of sales because of Woodfield. And then he goes, but once he was caught and convicted, this house was sold in no time.
That's crazy.
Mm-hmm.
Ugh.
Which makes sense. I mean, I'd be terrified
absolutely.
too. But
For
yeah.
sure.
So Mackenzie,
Yes, ma'am.
what are you telling us?
My story is a bit shorter.
That is okay, because mine was a bit longer.
And not as dark.
But yeah, it was very dark, because I found another one that I was going to do, but it just was very, very confusing, because he had committed multiple crimes in different states, and the articles I was reading weren't talking about which state he was in when he committed the crimes.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm like, this is not going to work out for me.
Well, and when I saw who, like, that you were doing a person, I was like, okay, well, I'll do, like, you know, a haunted whatever. And then, you know, I'll do a true crime
Yeah.
for next time. Sometimes, like, depending on the state, I'm like, it'd probably be much easier if I do a crime versus something haunted.
Right.
So.
And like also like sometimes, and I hate to say it like this, but sometimes, well, I guess no. Sometimes I'm just not in the mindset or like the space mentally to be able to cover something.
Oh, sure.
And so I'm like, all right, I gotta do like, that's why I did Mothman the other day, because
Yeah.
I was like, and it was fun to do him, but it was like I can't mentally do
Yeah.
a serial killer.
Absolutely.
And so I was like, okay, haven't done one in a while. I'm in a good place. Like I can do this one. You know, we were after the holidays. We're settling into the sad months. So, you know.
Seasonal depression is at its height.
Yes. So I was like, all right, let's do a serial killer.
All right. So I bring to you, I'm going to call it how I think it should be, because every single thing I listened to said something different.
Yep.
And one site I read, it was like, oh, it says how it's pronounced how it's spelled. And I'm like, that's assuming that the way it's spelled makes sense. So you could say Malher. I say Maller.
Okay.
Because that's when I press the thing, it's the Maller. So Malher, Maller, whatever. The Malher Cave is a lava tube cavern that is located in Burns, Oregon.
Oh my God, you talked about lava tubes in Hawaii.
Mhm. And it's located in Burns, Oregon.
Oh.
Look at that.
Do you think they named it that because of that?
I don't know.
I would hope so.
That'd be clever.
It would be clever.
The cave is about 3,000 feet long and ranges from 8 to 20 feet in height, depending on where you are in the cave.
Mm-hmm.
This cave has an underground lake that can flood close to 1,000 feet from the entrance.
Cool.
This cave was brought to fame in the 1930s when it became the meeting spot for the local Freemasons to hold their meetings. The first meeting held in the cave was on October 1st, 1938. Because of the association with the Freemasons, the stories of these mysterious meetings are running ripe with conspiracies.
Ooh. Love a good conspiracy.
Yes. Some of these conspiracies include meetings that involve devil worship and other satanic rituals. Another rumor is that the cave connects underground tunnels all across the United States, all owned by the Freemasons. This could also stem from the Native American folklore about the cave. And so while there are many different stories, one of them, it talks about the cave being an entrance to the underworld.
Creepy.
Yeah. So this one podcast that I was listening to while researching the cave talked about a photo from 1913. The photo had 4 people who looked to be exploring the cave and their dog. And 1913 would have been way before the Freemasons, like...
Oh, yeah, because they were in the 1930s. Yeah. Okay.
And apparently in this photo, there are many orbs that seem to be coming out from behind the explorers. Now, this picture was taken a really long time ago, so the orbs could be due to long exposure.
Right, right.
Or maybe it has always been a haunted location.
Yeah.
I forgot to look up the picture before I came here, so I don't know. Because I had made a mental note to myself that I need to look up the picture so I could give my own 2 cents, and then I forgot.
You could look it up real quick if you want.
Oh, good point.
So we're back. We couldn't find the picture.
Not one that seemed legit anyway. But we're just going to say that it's haunted.
Oh, of course.
The most haunted cave in the world.
In the world.
So I also watched a video that had been posted to Instagram, and it was featured on this blog about conspiracy theories around the United States.
Fun.
This guy walked for 4 minutes before he even got to the bleachers in the cave. And the
Wow.
bleachers were where they held their meetings.
Yeah.
You had to walk 4 minutes just to get there.
They didn't want to be found.
I guess so, but it's also like, I'm not walking 4 fucking minutes.
4 minutes of walking isn't that far.
But into a cave?
Into
like,
a
you're already
cave.
in the most inconvenient spot.
Right, into a cave, that's far.
So unnecessary.
But just like walking normally, like 4 minutes isn't that bad.
No. But into a cave.
Yeah, into a cave that's freaky.
Like, let's not make this. Anyway. The bleachers, I assume, are for where the Freemasons held their meetings. But why does it take 4 minutes to walk to get there? The person who posted it talked about black stains. But when I watched the video, they looked like water spots.
Ah.
But for the sake of creepiness, let's say it was blood.
Okay.
So, that's the cave, which I accidentally found when I was researching the real thing that has much more interesting spooky stories.
Oh, okay.
So this is the Malheur Butte.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. And it is named after the French word for bad fortune, misfortune, or unhappiness. It is an inactive volcano that was formed between 20 to 15 million years ago in Ontario, Oregon. And over time, lava flows and sediment filled rivers and washed away the land. As the sediment eroded away, the formation of Malheur began to make shape. So while the volcano had been inactive for millions of years, Malheur County has reports of geothermal activity in the form of hot springs. So here's a little bit of history. And don't worry, I did not bring this story to you for a geography lesson. This butte of a landform, proud of myself for that one,
Well, as you should be.
Is home to witches and ghosts,
Ooh.
known for witch covens convening to perform dark magic rituals. Native Americans would use the massive Malheur as a way to keep watch for settlers encroaching. Okay, that's what I said, but I wasn't sure if that was right.
Yeah.
On their land. They would see settlers coming on their horse-drawn wagons, and they ensured that many did not make it to their final destination. So many believe that the spirits linger around the volcano.
Mm-hmm.
Some reports claimed that hundreds of witches would gather at the base of the volcano and perform human sacrifices. Some said that these witches would be at the top of the volcano, where they would call upon spirits and dark forces to rise from the underworld.
Naturally.
People like to blame the witches for the disappearances around the volcano. I tried to look it up, couldn't find like a many disappearances kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
There's a recent one, but not like, whatever.
Yeah.
It also doesn't help that the river that flows around the volcano is called Snake River.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah, I'm sure you do.
I do.
I literally, as I was writing it, I was like, she's not going to find this freaky.
No.
As I write it.
My mom got me a snake calendar for Christmas. So it has a nice snake for each month.
You can never get one.
I know. Joe won't let me get one either.
Good.
My mom wouldn't let me get one when I lived there. Joe won't let me get one when I live here. I don't think Roy would like it very much.
I would never come over.
You wouldn't know.
That you have a snake?
I could hide it.
Okay. So, people have also seen dog-like apparitions with no eyes and other shadow creatures that would chase you from the grounds, or they are impish shadow people about the size of a small dog that chases people off the grounds or even in their cars.
Okay.
So they are said to dart around at night, hiding between rocks and chasing away visitors. These shadow creatures have been described as human-ish,
Human-ish.
with long, scrawny limbs, large heads, and produce either a shrill or a howl.
I would not like to hear that at all.
Mm-mm. So so funny. The experiences at Malheur Butte are especially creepy. In Lauren's house, the dedicated reporters who share these scary stories are part of the elite podcast called A Scary State. These are their stories. Dun dun! That was funny.
What were you watching while you were doing your notes?
CSI Miami.
Ah,
Not even
not even
SVU.
Law and Order. Yep.
Yeah, no. I don't remember what made me think of that. Oh, I think I saw like something with experience. I think I was thinking of like these are their stories, and so
Oh.
then I looked up the opening and like applied the words.
I love it.
Thank you. Thank you very much. So we will start with our rumored witch gatherings. A local man reported to the author Donna Stewart, who wrote about the volcano in her book, Ghost Hunting Oregon. Quote, I've heard about witches since I was a boy. I was always told not to go to the butte. I really want to say butt every time I
Yeah.
see it.
He touched the butt.
He touched the butt. Go to the butte after dark. So of course I did.
Of course.
Yeah. I mean, it's human nature. You tell them no, they gotta go.
No, yeah, there was this haunted doll at one of the places we went to when we were coming back from North Carolina and said, do not look the doll in the eyes. Do you know how hard it was for me to not look the doll in the eyes?
Like the other day, last week when I was here, and I didn't want to look in my rearview mirror, but I had to.
Right.
I just could. It was like
you have to. Yep.
not nice. Humans suck. Anyway, Can't say I'm positive I saw witches, but more than once I see long robes that flap in the wind, more than one. Sometimes women laughing, but not in a funny way. More of a serious kind of laugh. I don't know. I know each time I left pretty fast. I think they are witches, either ghosts of witches or living witches. I don't have the intention to interrupt them either.
Let me hear a serious laugh.
I don't know how to do that.
Ha ha ha. I don't know. What is that? A serious laugh. Ha ha ha.
I'm assuming like an evil cackle, like whoa. Like you're not actually laughing because something's funny. You're like whoa.
All right, we've covered all possible things that a serious laugh could be.
We haven't done a ho ho ho, hardy har har, a hee hee hee. Oh man. Our next story comes from a group of campers who witnessed an encounter with our small dog human creatures. I don't know, whatever they are. The group was camping in an area when they heard a rustling sound around their campsite. They assumed it was animals and didn't pay any mind to the noise until the next morning when they saw all their belongings in a small pile.
Ew.
As if someone intentionally stacked all their things together.
I don't like that.
Even though none of them had.
No.
The next evening, they heard the strange sounds again, but this time they went out to see what it was, and this is what they saw. Quote, something scurried through the campsite. I thought it was a raccoon or something, but it stopped and turned to look at me. Its face was humanoid, glowing eyes, and it stopped in its tracks as soon as I came out. It looked at me, and I could see that it had a face sort of like a person, but with certain dog-like features, and of course, those glowing eyes. Then I became aware that there were more of them about, and that they were circling the camp. It was very obvious to me at the time what had messed with our camp the night before. Needless to say, they left and did not come back. There are, of course, your run-of-the-mill ghost stories. One investigator shared his experience. Quote, so I went on a quest with my wife and daughter and a friend of hers to the most haunted places in Eastern Oregon. One place we went was Malheur Butte in Ontario, Oregon, founded on Shadowlands Index. It was about 10:30 p.m., all dark on a hill at the base of the retired volcano, when I saw a white cloud go by at the base of the mountain going west. All I had was a digital voice recorder. My daughter had the digital camera and was taking pictures out the open window that was facing west. They were too afraid to get out of the car.
Yeah.
Can relate. A couple of minutes after I saw the white cloud race by, my daughter caught a picture of what I believed to be a ghost of maybe a man. Shadow figure? She called me to the car to show me what she had captured. After seeing the picture, I went back outside with the digital recorder. I asked if he had been killed, and there was no answer. I said that I had heard there were a lot of witch rituals going on around here in the past, where you sacrificed. Immediately afterwards, I caught a nope on the digital recorder that I did not hear with my own ears. It was plain as day in a male voice. I was out in the desert with 3 females. I was the only male, and it was not my voice. So my point is, I am now convinced that there are truly ghosts.
Okay.
So, Mark Miner, the seeker, was planning to stay the night at the volcano and made a video about his experience. When he was walking up towards what I assume is the top, he said, oh, this is fucking hilarious. There's like a little entrance thing. He has his like camera on it. And he goes, I don't have anything to climb up there with, and I'm not climbing that thing. I said, fair.
Yeah.
Wasn't insanely high, and I bet if he put the camera down, he could do it.
Yeah.
Like, he was tall enough that he could...
Like, jump and get up there.
Yeah, like, he could probably have put the camera on the ledge and then climbed a little bit. But I get it.
Yeah, can't blame
I probably
him.
wouldn't do it either.
I would not be there in the first place, so.
Then he said supposedly, and I almost stopped watching. But instead, I skipped ahead. And this guy is a hoot.
There's an episode of Friends where Chandler's getting upset because he's like, one of the girls said supposedly. And then you see Joey going, supposedly. Supposedly? Do I want to get cake? Supposedly.
So he starts going on about how these people pulled up on a road adjacent to the volcano and started filming him. It was a man and a woman, and they were filming him on what looked like a movie camera. So he started going a different way and saw some no trespassing signs. Well, then he starts ranting about how disappointed he is in his experience and how he had to drive all the way there and how there's nowhere to park.
No.
All very minor inconveniences.
Right.
But although complaining, nonetheless, he's a respectful complainer who doesn't want to trespass or break the law.
Okay.
So,
I can respect that.
exactly. He did end on a nicer note and said the locals were very nice and most of them definitely believed that the place was haunted. One local, Sonja Morrison, commented on the video about their experience. I live in Vail, Oregon. I can confirm that Malheur Butte has got some dark history. My family and I have gone down there late at night and have actually been chased by what we call ghost cars or trucks that chase us away from there with flashing lights just to disappear into nowhere. There are rumors about high school students that drove a truck up to the top of the butte, lost control, and rolled off and all died.
Oh.
Sorry, I said the very... I'm just trying to read what they wrote.
Rolled off and all died.
Yeah. Witchcraft was done at the butte as well. We have also seen what seems to be little things, wouldn't call them human, but small creatures out there hanging from a tree,
Ew.
not too far from the butte. I'm assuming it's our small dog, humanish creatures. There are a lot of bad things that have happened there. The butte has absorbed so much dark energy and has witnessed so many bad and traumatic events. The Malheur Butte is most definitely haunted. So both of my stories have many conspiracies that surround them, but you can decide for yourself if the legends are true. If you have ever explored either of these places, send us an email of your story and you could be featured in a listener episode. So,
Creepy.
yes.
Interesting.
Mm-hmm.
I want more stories from this place.
I tried. But, like, there were a bunch of different, like, little podcast episodes, and every single one of them said the same shit that the
Of
websites
course.
had said.
Always.
So, I did find one good website that had, like, different kinds of experiences.
Okay.
But even when I tried to, like I always try to go to YouTube for videos and shit, and
I do that all the time. I love it.
the one for the cave, it's literally just the guy walking into the fucking cave. And I'm like, I'm not sitting here for fucking 8 minutes.
Right.
Like, this is so boring.
Yeah.
So that really didn't have much of anything. And I tried to even look up like conspiracy theories, but it was like 20 conspiracy theories around the United States. And
I know.
was
It's like, well, that's not what I'm looking
not
for.
fucking
Thank
helpful.
you.
So I was hoping to find more on the butt. But that was all I could find at the time, which is why if you live in Oregon and you've been there, or you know someone who knows someone who's been there or whatever, let us know.
Give
and
us
then
the deets.
we could add it to our shit.
Right.
So short and sweet, but funny.
Yeah. I liked it.
I'm clever.
Well, follow us all the things. Mackenzie,
All the
what's
things
What's our
now.
TikTok?
At a Scary State podcast.
So do that.
Yeah.
Which is really exciting.
It is exciting. And like make us go viral or something.
Mackenzie today, she was like, what video can we do to go viral?
I don't know if I should stick with the theme of all our videos looking like they were recorded in 2007 and posted on YouTube, because that's what our first one looks like.
Yeah.
I'm hoping with my new fancy phone,
New phone.
that the videos are crisper.
Oh.
But we'll see.
We'll see.
Because my editing skills are non-existent.
Because we are millennials and we did not grow up with TikTok.
Yeah. So I'm hoping the more I do it, the better I get.
You will.
But yeah, go follow us on TikTok. Go like all of our shit so that, people see it.
Send us experiences to a scary state podcast at gmail.com. Literally any experience. It doesn't have to be just the state we talked about.
Yep.
It doesn't have to be literally just any experience.
It could be a short little paragraph.
Right. Just send it to us.
Also, if you, are good at social media stuff and have ideas for videos you guys would want to see,
Yeah.
also let us know, because I am blanking.
Yeah.
So please send me ideas or just overall what you would think would be fun to watch.
And keep your eye out. We have some merch coming out soon.
Ooh,
Little bits of merch.
Yes.
But it's a start.
It is, and we will give more information when we have that. And so if you're interested, you can let us know, and you could get the first official merch given to listeners.
Yeah.
So there you go.
Yeah. So I guess stay scary.
Stay safe.